And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Or more appropriately, I got my Holy Crap shirt. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. A vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because Facebook is a wonderful place for civil discourse. Part of this is to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble pretty much everywhere. You can find me under that name, Shujin. Good luck with that, too. Let me quickly introduce you to who's here still at this point, because we've got some people that are going to be sending me notices from Epstein's mom, I'm sure. From the Midwest of the U.S., good evening, Bridget.
Good evening.
And from just south of me into, well, Pittsburgh, good morning, Joey.
Believe me, not by choice.
Well, at the moment, this is about it. And there's reasons for that. Item number one. Heretic woman is, well, she's about to be the backseat bitch on the way out to Newfoundland. And she would be the first to admit to it because she's riding on the backside of the bike. Considering that it's 60-ish Fahrenheit degrees right now, that's gonna be a fun trip right there.
Should be all right.
Yeah, but you, as somebody who's ridden bikes, I'm sure that you would be able to tell us that 60 Fahrenheit is not exactly optimal temperature for riding on a bike.
Yeah, but that's the thing. She's got whoever's on front with as a windshield.
And she's also from Canada, too. I mean, from Canada. So, like,
wow.
They have a different perception of warmth up there. She's probably wearing shorts whenever it's like 40 here. So
it doesn't matter what time of year it is. If you're on the interstate and it starts raining,
that's a good point.
It's fun.
I
know from experience.
Yes, you do, don't you? Southbound and down on the way to Georgia. Those were great hours right there, weren't they?
Yeah. I don't miss those trips.
I don't say so, blame you. So we got that. Joseph is feeling a little under the weather. He's decided to bow out, which I can't say as I blame him. Best of luck.
No French surrender jokes, I promise.
No. He's been dealing with stuff that's got him seriously what's the word that I'm looking for? Stressed. So, best of luck. Unrenewed Tech is otherwise busy, which is fine. He's trying to be our mole.
Stop that.
It's been a long week for me.
Yeah, it has. So anyway, Unrenewed Tech is not able to be with us tonight. That's okay. And Dalan is, well, apparently on a bit of a road trip, it would seem. Which, okay, it's the way it is. I understand. Fine, 12-hour drive up, 12-hour drive back home. I understand. Don't do that. But it is what it is. No, 12-hour drive. I mean, when Tiny Trib and I went down for ReasonCon, it was 12 hours one way, then 15 the other, and that was fun.
How does that work? Yeah. Have you ever seen construction on an interstate system?
Yeah, for a good 20 minutes at a clip.
Of course, at least you didn't make my mistake.
I kept all 4 tires on the ground. Is that what you mean?
Well, I was more specifically referencing I-95 through Washington.
Yeah, that's not a good place. No, for me it was straight down past. Actually, it was kind of fun because most of the way going down, it was pretty much the same as going to Pittsburgh and Anthracon, and then it's like, oh,
you would have probably been on 79 and 77.
Yep, and it was kind of fun.
Which means if you jumped at the point that I think you did, you probably passed the point where I wrecked my car on US 19.
That's just a long trip to take to stay overnight and turn around and come back. That's all I'm saying.
What, you mean for me? And TT? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it was for a good cause. I'd like to
I know, but still, that's rough.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
every now and then you need a drive.
It's true, and truth be told, I am not driving that same route again just to bring you back your glasses. Although I will, because I've still got them. They're over the place.
That's what the U.S. Postal Service is for.
Yeah, we say that. Anyway, so good evening, everybody who's watching it, of which there are a couple of you. Thank you very much. Aubrey, I do see you over there, and hi. No, I'm not doing the Veer Kodo wave, but anyway, for those of you that are listening in, that was creepy that I just did. You're welcome. So it's going to be a little bit on the weird side. I was hoping to nab a couple of folks last minute because I had forgotten that, we don't have a lot of people. I made one call out. It wasn't going to happen. Person is busy, which, truth be told, kind of makes sense. They're a little bit busy because they normally are. Maybe we'll get lucky. We'll get somebody to pop in with us. We shall see. If you know somebody and you want to tell them, hey, tell these guys and come on, we're going to, I know I'm kind of leading my hand a little bit, but we're going to be talking about how crazy the weather has been and the nasty stuff that has been happening over the last couple of years because it's only getting worse. We'll see about that. Anyway, while that's all happening, let me go ahead and get everything rolling because, well, yeah, we started a little bit late, but be that as it is. So, with my timer nowhere to be found, there it is. Amongst all the other things, I didn't set that up for myself this time, so there it is. So, with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle starts right now. There's an old adage that usually happens every once in a while, and usually it's attributed to scientific stuff. You worked so hard on how to do something, you didn't think about should you. And I'm misrepresenting the quote, and truth be told, if I'm not mistaken, I think it comes from one of the Jurassic Park movies, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. Probably am. I don't care. I never saw any of them. Whatever. Shut up. I watched The Big Lebowski recently. I don't get it. So, there's one off of somebody else's bucket list for me. I digress. But should you? Is the question that we kind of deal with over here on the show. And that is not an easy question to answer. See, no matter what it is that you do or don't do, there's always consequences, usually many more unintended consequences. And that's where this whole thing comes into. It's easy enough for us to go ahead and say that we don't hold someone to blame because they didn't do something. There are occasions where we do because, well, if you sit back and don't help someone when they obviously need help and you could have helped them, yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give you shit. And rightly so. For instance, you are on the side of a body of water and you've got a flotation device of some kind and you don't throw it out there to somebody who needs it. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give you crap for that. But how about if you try to do something, or more appropriately, if you do something, and it goes, as the expression goes, pear-shaped? Well, sometimes, that happens. To be expected, really. For every time that you do something right, there's going to be something that could potentially go wrong. That's just kind of the way that things work. I mean, for every time that somebody flips a coin, it could come up heads, it could come up tails, unless you've got a double-headed or a double-tailed coin. But nobody ever really thinks about the times when it could end up resting on its side if you flick it up in the air and let it drop to a flat surface. It could end up on its side. It's not really likely, but we don't think about those unintended consequences. So here's this one. Donald John Trump, currently residing as the President of the United States of America, went ahead and pardoned the sheriff that was under investigation being prosecuted in a court of law for violating the civil rights of American citizens. And he went ahead and the guilty verdict came down, and then before sentencing issued a pardon. Now, some people are going ahead and saying, well, the president has absolute authority to do that. And I'm not as well versed in the law as most people. I will admit, I really don't know very much about it. But there's some people of whom I trust their view and their opinion on the law and their possible understanding of the cases. But there's a piece about this also that I'm finding out. This goes completely against the usual methodology. Usually, it gets reviewed. Usually, you have to wait a little while. Usually, the person has to be sentenced first. And this is where it gets to be a little bit queer. What happens in a situation like this, where it's obvious, blatantly obvious, that this pardon, this exception to the law, to punishment, came simply as a personal favor? That's kind of an abuse of power, don't you think? Because now you've gone ahead and done a favor for someone else. But when that favor has to be paid back, it could happen soon. It might never happen, but someday, some way, a favor might have to be asked back. What's that favor going to be, I wonder? As the expression goes, I suppose, only time will tell. This is episode 177 on the docket, Your Honor. Gaia's pissed. And for those of you that happen to remember the name Gaia, yes, there are various different names for Earth itself, and Mother Nature is occasionally, and maybe even usually, referred to as Gaia. Now, what exactly that comes from, I do not know, and I don't really think it's that relevant, but it's a common term enough, yes.
I wanted to say Greek mythology, but I might be incorrect on that.
While you double check that, what's basically been happening over the Gaia is a goddess, Aubrey is saying. Okay. A Titan, no less. Well, Titans and goddesses are different. One killed the other. Titans killed the god? No, the gods killed the Titans. That's what it is. No wonder there was the clash going on. Never mind.
Yes.
Ray Harryhausen.
It is from Greek, and yes.
Gaia was a...
Well, she herself, looking at my sources here, she herself was in fact a god, but she was the mother of the Titans.
Ah, well, so there you go. Learned something new tonight. So...
And I'm more familiar with the Gaia hypothesis, James Lovelock.
Which is what?
It's where he defines, a complex interrelationship between all the dynamics of Earth, the biosphere, atmosphere, oceans, and that they, all work on a feedback loop, and that one change affects others, aspects of the functioning of the Earth's atmosphere and biosphere, and that it tries to maintain homeostasis, but and it's pretty good at it, but there's some things that just can't recover from.
So in effect, the butterfly effect, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah, it can't be damaged so much that things go into a feedback loop, and things get worse and worse
Until basically a new normal is established.
Well, yeah. I mean, for example, the major driving forces for our climate. I mean, you have the ocean currents that carry, warm, salinated water to the north and, cooler, desalinated water toward the south. You screw that up, you screw up the entire climate of the northern hemisphere.
So we're gonna end up talking about bits and pieces of this because there are a number of things that have been happening over the last while that have been distressing, shall we say? So we'll get to that momentarily. Since Heretic Woman's not here at the moment, I did go looking myself to find out if there's any new news about Raif Badawi. The only new information I have is apparently there is possibly a new video. I don't remember which has or has not been shown around, but what would appear to be a new video to me that's currently making the circuit that was recently released. Instead of being a far away video of Raif Badawi being lashed, it's apparently a very close personal cell phone video, basically, is the equivalent of what it looks like. Very close up. I will admit I did not look at it myself because, truth be told, I don't need to. Thank you very much. The news reports have said that that's what it is and that's who it is. I'm willing to take their word on that because I don't need to see that. Yeah. Truth be told, I don't know who does, but the bottom line of it is being circulated, and hopefully with the idea of trying to, name and shame a little bit more the Saudi prince currently, who is in his young 30s, who may work towards modernization, shall we say. We will see how that plays out. In any effect, Raif Badawi is still in prison, which makes tonight's recording, as of tonight, 5 years, 2 months, 17 days since he was incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes and our thoughts are still with you and your family, and we're hoping really, really hard for what that's worth. So the couple of pieces that I made reference to. Item 1, a year ago, and this is what really brought it all together. A year ago, we might remember that there was the Horse River wildfire, also known as the Fort McMurray wildfire up in Alberta, kind of up in Dalan's neck of the woods. It was under 500 miles away, 750 kilometers from where he lives. And yeah, that was troubling, to put it nicely. 589,500 hectares, or over 2,000 square miles burned, including a lot of buildings and a lot of people evacuated. And the reason why this kind of got this whole thing started for me was I found out that just recently, like within the last couple of days, it was not listed as dead and finished. So it has an official burn time of 458 days. Now, for those of you that can do the math, that means that it lasted through at least one winter. Yes, they apparently had to wait for it to try to survive through the winter weather and the spring, because they needed to find out if it was so unpredictable that it would have survived the winter and the wet spring and started back up again, which apparently it fortunately, don't know if it did or it didn't. All we know is at this point, it's officially declared dead after over 400 days. Obviously, we just had Houston, Texas, dumped on with a Cat 4 hurricane, Hurricane Harvey. A Cat 4 is 209 kilometers per hour, 130 miles per hour, sustained winds, gusts upwards of 233 kilometers per hour or 145 miles per hour. Spawning tornadoes occasionally, which, as if, you didn't have enough shit to deal with, thank you very much. They were dumped on with 1.25 meters of rain, 50 inches of rain. Think about this a second. Some of you that have got these newfangled TVs, these larger screen TVs, turn them on their side and stand them up. That's how much water they've been dumped on in under a week. This is the first Category 4 that has landed on the U.S. since 2004. Hurricane Irene. The Bahamas and the eastern seaboard of the United States. Cat 3 at the Bahamas, Cat 1 at the U.S. 15 inches of rainfall by comparison. And waves upwards of 3.5 meters, 12 feet tall. That's impressive, to put it nicely. A 12-foot wave coming up onto the beach, that's going to have a lot of kinetic energy behind it, and that's going to go ahead and swamp a lot of land inland at that point. $16.5 billion in damage on that one. As far as Houston, we have no idea at this point, because the area that is right now being ripped apart by water moving along is the size of Connecticut. Put that in perspective for a couple minutes. Wildfires out in California, again, starting up, that are, a big problem. Is this the new norm? I mean, yeah, I'm centering on, North America, because truth be told, that's what I see more. We had freaking tornadoes out over here in Western New York. That's atypical, to put it nicely.
Yeah. To be fair, we don't usually get weather reports from, Mongolia. True.
But we did, not too very long ago, see information about water that is being not diverted, but mitigated in order to prevent a particularly famous city from being inundated and washed underneath itself. Venice, in particular, Venice, Italy, where the water, comes up every once in a while and is normal a couple of times a year to, a half a foot or more on the ground at whatever passes for ground level. But they're working on a way of trying to mitigate that so that Venice doesn't just wash away from the ground up.
To be fair, you do run into those sorts of problems when you decide to build a metropolitan city on a swamp.
Yeah, but it's not just Venice. There are other islands that are slowly being reclaimed by the ocean because the heat is building up, which is increasing the volume of the volume of the ocean, because, things expand when they heat up, usually. So, is this what we're looking at? Is this what's really going to become the new norm? What the frick can we do when Mother Nature says, yeah, screw you, and goodbye?
Well, honestly, what can we call norm? Now, this is something that I brought up just last night. We as a species have been pretty lucky.
Agreed.
We have come in... We're technically in an ice age right now. We are the period of time that we are currently occupying here on the planet Earth is considered an ice age. But we are in the middle of a warm period during that ice age. Now, I'm not going to comment on, human activity just yet. But as far as human history goes, what we have as written history, that entire span has been that warm period. So to be fair, when that finally comes to an end, we have no idea what to expect.
Which this
because the who would have experienced anything of that sort would be our ancestors who weren't able to read or write or record, what the hell was going on in their time.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as written recordable history, I mean, we're talking easily, 5,000+ years ago, probably closer to 7,500 if I remember right. I mean, the earliest stuff is the earliest stuff that we've got would be Sanskrit, I think it is. Trying to remember which one it is.
Yeah, by definition, we are actually in the Holocene, which is an interglacial period of the Ice Age. It began 2.6 million years ago. We haven't been on the planet that long.
No, not as a species. And definitely not with recorded history. That's for damn sure. And on top of that, we've also got a couple of things that will definitely change the way that the weather operates. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, we've got the knowledge of the supervolcano in Yosemite, if I remember right, which will do a major amount of damage if and or when it blows.
It is considered one of the biggest threats, but its effects, it wouldn't necessarily have significant effect worldwide. It would really screw over the North American continent, but as far as worldwide goes, it'll have some effect, but not a staggeringly large effect. Thankfully, it is also one of the most monitored sites on the planet.
There's that. And let's be fair about this though. For you and me, that's going to be a really bad time for a while.
Yep.
Actually, it'd be worse for Bridget first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'd be pretty much hosed.
So that's something fun to think about right there, isn't it?
Now,
oh, yeah.
I had mentioned human activity earlier. And this is one of the things that we are really concerned about right now.
Yep.
This is considered one of the cooler periods of our planet's cycle. It's, it warms up, it cools down, warms up, cools down. That's the way it has operated pretty much since we've had oceans on this planet, which, believe it or not, we haven't always. But the point being is that, like I said, we are in an interglacial period, which is, a little warm spot in the middle of an ice age. The big question that they're addressing now is it possible that we are going to end the ice age? Because normally after an interglacial period, it gets cold again, and, the ice age continues for a few more, million years. And talking about things that none of us are going to live to see. But is it possible for human activity to do enough damage to break that cycle? Or for all the Game of Thrones fans out there, break the wheel.
As somebody who's never seen Game of Thrones and knows nothing about it, I don't know. I don't know anything about that one. But that's something that I have gotten into it with people about on Facebook. Imagine that. But one of the things that I had to deal with is trying to understand something that I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson had basically explained it as. And I'm going to be paraphrasing a huge amount, an absolutely huge amount here for a second. But his basic premise was, look, over millions of years, all this carbon was buried on top of itself and then covered over with everything that settled on top of it that pushed it down. Could be volcanic activity, could be just dirt and dust and stuff just piling on top of itself, and it just pushed down because, it got covered over and it got pushed down. So all these millennia later, humans have found a way to dig down and start pulling that stuff back out again. Is there now an imbalance in the amount of carbon that is on the surface of the planet compared to what there was before the Industrial Revolution? The answer is yes. There's no way of getting around that fact. All that stuff that was pushed down, all that carbon, all that fossil fuel now was down there. Not to be coming back anytime soon, unless, of course, there was huge upheavals of volcanism and tectonic stresses. It's down there. It ain't coming up, except for the occasional spot where, stuff fractures and it bubbles up. But that's millions upon millions of years worth of stuff. And we, humanity, have been intentionally pulling it out for the last, let's call it 300 years. Just for argument's sake. The Industrial Revolution, I know, was not 300 years ago, but for just humor me a second. Maybe we found a couple of pockets here and there. Okay, stuff has bubbled up once in a while. All right, it happens. Tar sands, perfect example. So now what? What is the effect of that? We now have the way of finding out and testing it and finding out for ourselves, because we can look at frickin' Venus and see what happens when you find out how much energy gets trapped because of this that we've been adding back into the environment that wasn't there before. And how in the hell is this something that people can argue about? Well, we've got, I'm sorry, climatologists. Hey, dude, screw you. The term is right and accurate, so screw you. When climatologists say with a 97% certainty, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Funny how the people who know more about the science, more and more and more about the science, are more and more and more in agreement. Funny how that happens.
And another thing that I hear a lot from people is, well, we've only been doing this for, okay, let's say since the Industrial Revolution. So we've only been doing this for a couple hundred years. There's no possible way that we could do as much damage as they're claiming that we're doing. It could be said that that is true, you have to remember something else. This little blip of warmth that we're experiencing in the grand scheme of things, remember, 10,000 years, nobody really cares what's going to happen in 10,000 years because they're not going to be around. But as far as the planet is concerned, that is a blink.
Yeah, geologically speaking.
Yeah. You have to keep in mind that this little interglacial period that we are experiencing is being caused by a number of factors that have nothing to do with us. For example, the Milankovitch cycles, which, you know, they're pretty much what determine how much sunlight is being cast on the surface of the planet at any given time. These are affected by, you know, planet's position in its orbit, axial tilt, so on and so forth. And these shift over time. Like I told Shujin in about excuse me, in, you know, tens of thousands of years time, summer in the northern hemisphere is going to be winter. That's just the natural cycle that our planet goes through. But keep in mind, we may not be contributing a whole lot on the grand scheme of things, but we're contributing enough while all this other stuff is also affecting it, which can really you know, amplify our effect many times over.
Yep, there's one in particular that comes to mind, and that is the permafrost no longer being frosted in
Tundra
Greenland.
regions. Well, just tundra regions all over the planet, really.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. That makes perfect sense. And because of that, the stuff that's been buried and frozen and not biodegrading is now liquefying and warming and biodegrading.
Rotting.
And that means that it is outgassing a lot of various things. Bridget, you know biology a little bit better than some of the rest of us. Once a living organism starts to, what's the word I'm looking for, achieve room temperature, I guess is the proper way of putting it. I think in the ambulance corps, the usual reference is a very stable patient. They start to outgas, don't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they do. They start breaking down and releasing gases, and some of the gases can be quite deadly.
Give us a few examples of what kind of gases we're expecting here. I mean, I can start you off. Methane, for one.
Yeah. And I'm like, drawing a blank.
Did I bring up a bad subject from biochemistry?
Oh, goodness.
Remember, you asked to be on this show. I didn't force you, woman.
I know.
It's your damn fault.
But, you know, let's just go over just a few that might sound familiar to some folks. Methane, carbon dioxide. Not really carbon monoxide, because that's usually a result of combustion of some sort.
Right, and truth be told, most biological species are going to be putting carbon monoxide to work by turning it into carbon dioxide by forcing stuff together, I would think, but that's just me. And methane, let's face it, we get a lot of that out of cows. Cows are fun, aren't they, Bridge? You've got a lot of cows out where you live, don't you?
Yeah, and they do fart a lot, so yeah.
Yes, I believe the technical term for it is effluviance.
Well, the effluviants are usually like
Flatus.
stuff like that. Flatulence, yeah, flatulence is a good word.
Flatus is the official term for the material that a fart consists of.
which of course is not in any way, shape, or form supposed to be insulting to those of you that operate in the woodwind section of a symphony orchestra. We are terribly, terribly, terribly sorry for bringing up any bad memories from marching band. I'm terribly sorry.
I loved marching band, though. It was fun.
Yeah, what did you play?
Clarinet. Nothing wrong with that.
Don't look at me. I don't have a musical bone in my body.
Yeah.
Except my knee. My knee. You might get a good tone off of that. You hit it hard enough.
For those of you that have been through, and Aubrey's saying I played clarinet too. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna get away with this just this once. Just this once.
What? We blow?
You know what? That's it. I'm done here. Good night, everybody. We're done. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just had to.
Now, remember, there is a disclaimer I'm going to put out here because I have used a lot of technical terms. I've used some terms that are in that, you know, even top scientists today are in disagreement with. I am by no means a professional in the realm of, you know, climatology or, you know, geology. I am the biggest layman you can think of. But I at least do my homework. I check my sources. I cite my sources. A lot of my information thus far has come from the Smithsonian and I don't use Wikipedia, generally speaking. There's a reason why your English teacher told you not to use Wikipedia in your citation pages. Anybody can edit Wikipedia.
That's right. That's why you should be going looking for the citations from Wikipedia. Now,
Yes.
Wikipedia itself.
Look for the .govs and .edus and so on and so forth.
The footers, the bibliographies. Am I using the right? You know what? Whatever.
Yeah, you know, you're using the correct term.
Okay. So,
though technically they're not books, so.
Well, that's perfectly fine. Okay, now I've completely lost track as to where I was. Oh, okay, I was making blowjob references. All right, so what we need to kind of wonder about is how much have we actually blown off our responsibility? You see what I did there? You're welcome. Bubbling up, crude. Sorry, and the fact that we didn't understand what we were completely doing, because ignorance is one of the most prevalent things in the pursuit of knowledge. I don't know, but I don't know. And yeah, we had this whole thing about, you know, there are unknowns that we know about, and there are unknowns that we don't know about, and that's a really, really bad line that was used. But you know, it's true. There are certain things that we do know, and there's certain things we don't know, and we didn't know when we started using hydrocarbons, fossil fuels, what we were going to end up doing to the environment. And like Joe said, the question is not, are we doing anything to the environment? We are, absolutely are. Question is, are we doing enough?
Grabbing you some reference material here.
Oh, that's great. That's just what we need. More reading. Thanks ever so much. I don't have any coffee right now. Why are you doing this to me? Especially this time. You know what? I didn't ask you. You know what? You asked to go ahead and go get. And what did you do? You didn't bother, did you?
Hey, mate. I got some coffee. It just wasn't enough.
All right. It's fair enough.
I'm whining.
Oh, don't even start with me. I'm actually going to be getting more wine next week. Come back to that in a second.
All right. This should be
Good timing there, Joe.
I would imagine that Yale.edu is a fair enough citable source.
It depends as to who you're asking these days, unfortunately. Some people will go ahead and say that Yale, isn't that a lock manufacturing company? Yes, they were. Whatever.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
Now, let me get this brought up here. And you know, it's one of those graphs that should be fairly self-explanatory.
Yeah, one would hope. And for those of you that don't already know about it, oh damn, I should probably cite that one. The interesting image from XKCD. I need to see about that afterwards. So, Joe, go ahead and explain what you got there.
Well, these are CO2 emissions that have been compiled over the course of, you know, millions of years through use of ice cores. And as you can see, the last time we saw the kind of emissions that we currently are experiencing today, just in the last, say, 100, 200 years, let's go ahead and be fair or be generous and say 200 years. Last time we saw those kinds of emissions were about 200 million years ago. Now, since I don't have that geological timetable, you know, photocopied in my brain, let's just go ahead and look up what was going on 200 million years ago.
Yeah. Meanwhile, by the way, I'm trying to read the. Forgive me, because of the size that I have my screen shrunk down to. I can't make out exactly what these are saying. You've got a listing for ice core observation and model projections, and I'm trying to figure out what each of these items that you've got on the end of the graph are. The highest.
Was that you?
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure the way that they did this graph, because it looks like they kind of used weird combinations of colors to try to. Oh, okay. So they're trying to show at the end of that graph various different projections and possible projections.
Yes.
I gotcha.
Like I said, the graph itself is self-explanatory. But what happened 200 million years ago? Would either of you care to venture a guess?
200. 200 mil would have put us into. Oh crap! 200 mil. I don't think that we even had. I don't think that we had land-based life at that point, did we?
No, we did. We did. Pangea was still around.
Okay. Go ahead. I mean, dead air.
Well, it was the beginning of the Jurassic period.
So Jeff Goldblum was born.
This was okay. Now, here's the thing. You see that big red spike in CO2 emissions at the 200 million year mark?
Yipper. Oh, was that the Great Dying?
Yeah, that coincides with the Permian Triassic extinction event.
Oh, and Stephanie. Hi. See you over there. Yeah, Stephanie's got it right. 200 mil, the seas died.
Let's see. Wait. Global climate during the Triassic. Now, this is from Wikipedia. Global climate during the Triassic was mostly hot and dry, with deserts spanning most of the interior of the landmass. Climate shifted and became more humid as Pangea began to drift apart. And the end of the period was marked by yet another mass extinction, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event, that wiped out many groups and allowed dinosaurs to assume dominance in the Jurassic.
So basically, we had a nasty event, and we're getting closer and closer and closer to those types of numbers.
Wow. Okay, on the graph that Yale's got, let me see real quick. Okay, so there's actually two big red spikes. I don't know if you can make them out. I know
Yep.
it's kind of pixelated, but yeah, those are both the Permian Triassic and Triassic Jurassic mass extinction events. So, excuse me.
Yeah, you're not used to talking so much.
Not on this show. Or at least talking and sounding like I actually know what I'm talking about. So in other words, the last time CO2 levels were this high, or at least, projected to be going as high as we're looking, given, the development of human technology and such, yeah, pretty much everything died.
Now, obviously, what we're talking about is we don't have anything to worry about our own individual selves. We will not live long enough to see everything suddenly die unless North Korea decides to suddenly say, hey, watch this. Hold my kimchi. But this is something that we have to concern over for, our progeny. I guess it's probably the nicest way of putting it. The people who will speak a language that we don't even know will exist yet. And I can get away with saying that because, well, let's see, how long has it been since English has been around? Yeah, not tens of thousands of years.
Well, that depends. Modern English or...
Tens of thousands of years. I mean, hell, Sanskrit was a couple thousand, and, well, we don't use that anymore, do we?
Well, let's see.
We don't use Sanskrit anymore.
Hold on.
The only time you end up seeing Sanskrit is from, if you look in the sand at the beach and you look at where the seagulls have been walking, it's their footprints. That's what Sanskrit is. Seriously.
Let's see. The most commonly cited language, being one of the earliest known languages that we have, is Sumerian, which specifically they identify this as Proto-Literate Sumerian, which is about 3030 to 3000 BC.
So $5,000, roughly $5,000.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And yeah, Stephanie's saying, English, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly. I don't know. For all I know, it could be Schleichhofen. I don't know. Evolved about 1,000 years ago, but that is nothing like modern English. Yes, because that's a band.
Or thought that was bad English.
Them too. You're welcome, Joe. He's just shaking his head. I can't say I blame him. Anyway, you're welcome. There's also bad religion, but that's a whole other band for later. We can talk about that one another time. How's that?
Yeah, then we can talk about losing our religion.
I see what you did there. That's good. That's good. Anyway,
then we can all just be shiny, happy people.
That's all great. That's perfectly fine. So, Bridget, who's your personal Jesus?
And we'll finally be so happy together.
No. Stop.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do this. Hey, Bridget, see this? You know what this is?
What is
red rubber ball? You're welcome.
Nick, Nick from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Now you're mixing your metaphors just a little bit. Anyway, so that's just great. Okay, so since bombs have now been brought into it all, you're welcome. Let's talk about a little something called nuclear winter, because this is one of those other things where we actually do have knowledge of what an unintended consequence would be.
And we also
heard about this one since the 50s. Yeah.
And we also don't have to be the ones to cause it.
No, we don't. Nuclear winter is something that has been discussed in various circles since the 50s, if I remember right. And the idea was, yes, you could go ahead and have a large conflict, probably involving nuclear weapons, because at the time, hey, it's just nuclear weapons. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Only for people to finally realize, well, wait a minute, you're talking about throwing a lot of dust and dirt and silt and stuff and strontium-90 smoke into the atmosphere. Probably a really, really lot of it. That might not be such a good idea. What would that end up doing? Well,
demonstrably from one nuke, you're not looking at much. I mean, we've been detonating them by the dozen for, decades.
Yes.
Even the largest one. Thanks, Russia.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
But, for example, mutually assured destruction, or MAD, is the old system where, we detected their nukes being launched. We can launch all our nukes before their nukes hit. Something on that order. Well, how many nukes do we have right now?
A lot.
Still a lot more than we need.
Some people would go ahead and say that one is too many. And before anybody goes ahead and says anything about that one, that is not this discussion. That is a completely different discussion for another time. We're not going to talk about that piece at all.
Yeah.
The important part about it is it's cumulative, like so many other things. Go ahead.
Well, we have some examples of what nuclear winter can do. For example, it is the most widely accepted theory for, what killed the dinosaurs. Everybody can say, oh, it was the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. The asteroid was the cause. It was all the dirt and debris that got knocked into the upper stratosphere and then, cycled through the entirety of the, atmosphere of the planet that resulted in nuclear winter, which, well, let's see. Climate during, age of the dinosaurs. Warm, humid, dry in the interior. You throw a big blanket of dirt over all that, it gets cold.
Yeah.
And anybody who's owned a lizard knows they don't do so well in the cold.
Nope. And how about this one? If anybody has a problem with this concept, did you have a problem with the premise of The Matrix? Did you?
Hey, we're all just brains in jars.
More importantly, we were all turned into Energizer bunnies because, well, okay, leaving the procreation factor aside for a second, nuclear winter and no more solar power. So the machines figured we could be good batteries, which,
even though
spoilers, we're really not.
Yeah, gotta say, humans are garbage as batteries.
Yep.
We're the dollar store brand.
Or worse. We're the ones that are made by your freaky uncle that's going and trying to figure out, if I go ahead and I crush up all my lithium pills, maybe I can get a 9-volt out of it.
But hey, at least we don't spontaneously. Well, okay, never mind. Maybe we do.
Yes,
on occasion, spontaneously combust.
Yeah.
But, so what can cause nuclear winter?
Well, nukes.
Nukes most certainly can, if we put enough of them up in the air at once.
That would be a bad day.
Very. I don't want to set the world.
You're not going to do this to me now.
Yeah.
You mentioned. Oh, go ahead, Bridget.
I was gonna say, yeah. There's roughly 15,000 nukes worldwide, and we have about half of them, close to half of them. So, yeah, that's a lot of nukes.
So one day we decided, no, I'm not going to do that. If you've never seen it, go look up End of Z World, ZE. Shouldn't know what I'm talking about.
But I'm retired.
But then take a nap. Then fire the space Cyrus.
That's another one I got to add.
But anyway, you mentioned earlier a good example, Yellowstone.
Yep.
Gigantic volcano just waiting to pop. Thankfully, we don't think it's going to pop anytime soon, but we've been wrong in the past.
Wait a minute. Wait, Yellowstone, Yosemite?
Or
Yellowstone.
Trust me, it's
in the middle of the country somewhere. It doesn't matter.
Plain and simple. It's a bad day whenever it happens.
Yeah,
because, like I said, while on a large scale, planetary scale, won't have much effect for the North American continent. Yeah, you're looking at nuclear winter.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no nuke involved. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The amount of debris that will be spit up into the atmosphere over North America will be in the magnitude of, I don't know, gigatons. Let's just say it that way.
That's probably not too far. Now,
pretty much all the dirt and rock that's on top of that big volcanic chamber in the air.
Yeah, a good portion of that. Now,
so immediately you're looking at, goodbye to several sections of several northern U.S. states and possibly a little bit of Canada.
And that is also not just going to affect North America. That's going to swing its way across the ocean, and it will affect.
I mean, again, I did say it will have an effect, but it will be a much lesser effect than, for us here.
Lesser, yes, but it's still gonna do its thing. Now, I can get away with saying that because there are a number of times, like clockwork, when the space shuttles would lift off, and like clockwork, I think it was 3 days later, there would be torrential rain in Great Britain. Like clockwork. Now, was there a direct correlation? I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm fairly certain it was, but I haven't checked it in recent memory. So,
well, again, you got to remember, how does rain form?
Well, when a mommy atom and a daddy atom of water get together,
water evaporates, rises into the upper atmosphere, and believe it or not, there's little bits of dust particles all throughout the atmosphere. Raindrops form around those particles. If you dissect if you dissect a raindrop, somewhere in the center of it, you're going to find, very minute particle of some random. You look like you have something to say, Shu.
No, I'm just thinking to myself, that would be one hell of a bio class. I mean, you replace the frog with a raindrop. I don't know how to dissect a raindrop. I've just I mean, it's been a long time since I held a scalpel. Sorry. But
you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Layman. In any case. But yeah, perfectly understandable for that to be the case. In fact, they've used that very method for seeding natural rain to put out forest fires.
Yep.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, we got smacked by a big friggin' rock a couple million years ago. Well, a couple 100 million years ago, but you know what I mean. Any large-scale impact that's going to kick up a lot of dirt and dust is going to result in nuclear winter. So, again, big rock hits the Yucatan.
Boom.
Dinosaurs die.
Yeah, because you've got not just the dust cloud blocking out the sun, but you've got a huge change in the way that the currents flow in the ocean, because you now have this big freaking divot in the water where previously there wasn't one. Amazing how that happens.
Yeah, and for those who think, oh well, you know, meteorites and such, they're not that big a deal. Anything under about, I remember getting an actual number, but I'm going to say, just for shits and giggles here, anything smaller than say 10 meters in diameter, we don't have to worry about. Even if it came in at a really steep angle, by the time it hits the ground, it's already been, you know, burned and melted throughout the atmosphere to the point where it's going to be like, you know, golf ball landing in a sand trap. Bigger than that, we start running into issues. Anything that's bigger than, say, you know, a kilometer, it doesn't matter where it hits. It can hit in the middle of the ocean. It's still hitting land.
Yep. Now, as far as to even those smaller ones, how much of a problem can that be? Well, a couple of years ago, there was that airburst in
Chelyabinsk.
Chelyabinsk, which was caught on dash cam. You know, because in Russia, everybody's got a dash cam because
there's a reason why everybody has a dash cam in Russia.
Rightly so. But it did a lot of damage. And
it didn't even hit.
No, it didn't. It was an airburst. And what caused most of the biological injuries, and I'm wording it that way for a goddamn reason, is because people saw the explosions, and then the pressure wave in the atmosphere hit a little while later, shattering glass all over people because they're over by their windows looking outside, and suddenly, boom, there it is. You know, we've also got the Tunguska. No, wait.
Tunguska event.
Tunguska, sorry.
Which produced enough light to be visible from Great Britain.
So, yeah. So even the stuff that we don't have to worry too much about, we kind of have to worry about a little bit.
Now, granted, those aren't necessarily what you call weather related, but still something we should be concerned with.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you know, the premise of tonight was, you know, what can we really do about some of the things that are going on for us? Well, yeah, big ass rocks suddenly getting thrown at us from outside of, you know, wherever. Yeah, there's not a hell of a lot of anything we can really do about that.
To be fair, though, well, if it happened tomorrow, you're right. But there's still a lot we can do about it. It just takes the right impetus.
It's true. Now, I'm also going to stress that generally speaking, there's not a hell of a lot of much that we can do, generally speaking, when we're talking about stuff that is
on a cosmic scale.
Well, yeah, that's smaller stuff that we really can't see that well because, well, it's smaller. Go outside some night and bring some charcoal and put it in the grass. Walk 25 feet away, turn around, and go look for it without a flashlight at midnight on a clear night where there's a new moon.
Yeah.
And you see how easy it is for NASA to actually try to find these things. It's not easy.
And those are just the big ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the point.
As for what we can do about weather, well, I have to say, in my personal opinion, the outlook isn't great.
No, it's not.
You got to remember that we have been putting huge amounts of carbon dioxide and whatever else into the atmosphere since, the first, well, really, we've been doing our entire history, but, usually the planet does okay with, the occasional campfire and such. It wasn't until we started making use of coal and oil that it became an issue.
Yeah, one good way of thinking about it is it's the difference between grinding your own eating oatmeal versus grinding flour and combining it with new stuff. Yes, it's still food, but it's refined food. It's food that's had some energy put into it to kind of change its consistency and what it actually is. You get more energy out of it. Consequently, there is more refined hydrocarbons and changed in what it is and how it affects things and what it puts out.
The specific term that you're looking for is energy density. And the difference between wood and oil is pretty big.
Is monstrously big. Now, what is it that we can do? Nothing. Really, in the grand scheme of things, we individually can't do dick because
we're beyond prevention. We're at triage stage now.
And that's perfect. Bring it over to the biological for a second. Bridget, technically, what is triage and what are you supposed to do?
Triage is where you sort out, I guess you could call it problems. And as far as like medical, that would be like, illnesses, injuries, things like that. And you treat the ones that are most severe first, but not if they're going to be lethal. Then you take care of like the next easiest things to take care of. Things that are lethal, you just kind of like let them go. But you're just trying to do the best you can to treat things to get it back to functioning with the limited resources that you have. But yeah,
I mean, to take it from a war standpoint, if it's going to take you the amount of time to save this guy, the same amount of time that it would take you to save 10 other guys, sorry, but that first guy's gone.
Yep.
And as hard as it might be for some people to accept that reality, that's reality when it's a matter of, where does your energy have to go to? And forgive me for wording it that way. If you have a choice of saving one person or saving 10,
you have to save the 10.
Yeah, I mean, you want to put it into a moral equivalence. There's no equivalence here. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's a person versus 10 people, what can you really do? You can't go any other way.
And we've been kicking ourselves in the teeth this whole time because think about it. Think about the difference between even medieval age human society and technology versus today. Main source of power for back then was, animal, which the planet is perfectly capable of dealing with, and wood, which at the time, we chopped down enough wood to, build some things and start some fires. And generally, we never really exceeded, the forest's capacity to replenish itself.
Yeah,
because you'd clear one section of forest and use all that wood, and by the time you cleared that one, another one had grown up in another place. You clear that one, this way it goes. But we still haven't stopped using wood. And moreover, since the big rise in agriculture, with the way the population's grown in the last few hundred years, we've been clearing more and more land, not because we need the wood, but because we want the space to be able to farm on. And what do trees do? Bridget?
Well, trees act as a carbon sink, and they, take in carbon in the form of carbon dioxide and release it back as oxygen.
I know this is going to sound really weird for some folks, but guess what? Trees breathe.
Yep.
What they do is they draw, like Bridget said, they draw in water and they draw in CO2. Now, it's pretty much the exact reverse process that we do. When we breathe in oxygen. That oxygen combines with, hydrogen molecules from the water that we take in. Or, excuse me, with the carbon molecules. We are comprised of carbon, among other elements. The carbon and the oxygen combine into CO2, which is what we exhale. It's opposite for plants. Plants bring in carbon dioxide and water, and they use photosynthesis to generate the bonds that then combine that carbon, oxygen, and water into the complex hydrocarbons such as sugars. That's how sugar is made in plant material.
Now, the thing that pisses me off about this is I have heard the argument that our burning of fossil fuels and putting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and into the environment is a boon to all of these plants because they now have more potential carbon dioxide to draw from. So it would be easier for them to manufacture the glucose and is it glucose? I forget exactly. Whatever sugars it is through photosynthesis. Yeah. And so that what we're doing is going to be offset by those plants.
Except we're cutting them all down.
That's a bit of a problem.
Now, there is something that, some folks will bring up, and that is that the algae beds throughout the oceans produce far more oxygen than the forests do. But what are we doing to the ocean? I mean, you go out into the center of the Pacific Ocean and you find the Great Trash Whirlpool.
Which, fortunately, they're working on finally getting all that crap out of there. There's a couple of great ideas, but again, that's another piece for later. But yeah, humanity has a bad history of just tossing stuff out the window. Oh, yeah. Great. Now I got to find that build PSA.
I mean, I'm going to look something up real quick. Specifically, human population just a couple hundred years ago. Give me a year. Give me a...
Let's go with 1800. The you know, the United States is a brand new 25-year-old country. Less than technically, really, but you know, whatever.
Okay. In the year 1800, let's see. We'll just do a graph. Everybody likes graphs,
Okay.
right? Oh, good. This one actually dates back to 1800. Perfect.
Oh, that's great. Now I'm thinking back of when David Letterman used to be a thing on CBS. Charts and graphs, charts and graphs, charts and graphs. Thank you, Worldwide Pants. We appreciate it. Sorry.
That's okay.
Not really sorry. Stephanie, would you do me a favor and kind of, I'm not sure what word it is that you're trying to use there. So could you double check what word you're trying to put? Because I'm not quite sure what your point is supposed to be right now. Joe, I was trying to bide you time there.
I know. I'm working on it.
This is what happens. Professionals over here. You're welcome. This is what happens.
Hey, I am a layman. I don't claim to be a professional anything except for asshole.
Oh, there we go. So go ahead.
Yeah. So let's say 1800. We're looking at just over 1 billion people on the planet. Now that is the span from the beginning of human recorded history to the year 1800. Back then, there weren't that many of us on the planet. So the resources that we used, the wood we burned, the coal we burned, all that, pretty easy for the planet to offset. As far as they were concerned, no problem. We can pretty much do whatever we want and not worry about it. But when you're talking in the order of what are we at right now? About 8 billion?
About that, yeah. A little shy.
Yeah. When you suddenly have 8 times as many people on the planet still putting out the same amount per person, if not more, that's when it starts to become a problem. Like I said, that's why the damage, I said, we are now in triage rather than prevention, because the damage we have done already, there's just too many of us. We can't undo the damage we've already done. And it's getting to the point where it will outstretch the grasp of what, our planet is capable of handling. Now, will we kill planet Earth? No. I'm sorry to say, but if a chunk of rock can hit this planet, kill practically everything on it, and it can still keep going, there's nothing we can do that's going to end the world. But boy, are we shooting ourselves in the foot. Because while Mother Earth will go on, she doesn't have to go on in a way that is hospitable to us.
Yeah. Stephanie has also brought a couple of pieces of information. And I do want to say, a term I'm unfamiliar with. I've not heard or read before, so please forgive me. I'm learning something new from you. Stephanie had said earlier, and this is what kind of caught me over here, there is such a thing as a, make sure that if I'm pronouncing it correctly, because I went looking it up really quick, surfeit, I believe is how it's properly pronounced, a surfeit of CO2. I thought the term that was being used was supposed to have been surplus. Now, again, forgive me, the meaning I had correctly if I've never heard that particular term before. And this is a term that I really need to check it. I like to read up new stuff.
I think the reason why she's specifically using that term is because, generally speaking, surplus has a positive connotation to it. You have a surplus of food, which, you know, you can then use for trade or whatever. This is a profoundly negative connotation for the term surfeit.
I don't know.
Whatever.
Because I'm looking over the information, and an excessive amount of something, such as a surfeit of food and drink. Okay, you know what? Again, I'll read up and learn a little bit better for myself for later, because again, something I had not known about before. And is also making reference that you know, we use a lot more energy per person now than they did in 1800, which is true. Which is true. We have a lot more energy that we put to use, but there's also something about that we can put to better use. Now, I've also heard this argument made before. To follow along with this, what can we do in ourselves individually? We can do our part. We can do our share. We can do our little bit, because cumulatively, damage happens as it accumulates, but better things can happen as they accumulate as well. For instance, getting off of using hydrocarbons as a primary fuel source for transportation. Switching over to electric, for instance, for those that can. Now, admittedly, there are certain areas for which the power density is necessary to use hydrocarbons. Where I live in the winter, where it is a real heavy-duty uphill, when it can get to, you know, -20, -30 Fahrenheit, uphill in the snow and there's ice, you need the power that hydrocarbons can give you. The argument that I've heard about this one is, well, look at how much crap you're going to do to the environment by mining all of these rare earth elements in order to make these clean vehicles. And what they do afterwards because of all that, because you need the infrastructure that's going to use all this stuff. And I really find that to be a disingenuous, because is it possible to add more to the environment by doing that? Yes. But to what end? To get rid of the need for all of that crap to go into the environment when all is said and done. Or at least to minimize how much is being used.
Well, in the case of, for example, you want to talk about rare earth elements, let's say lithium. Lithium really doesn't play a huge part in the great biosphere of the planet Earth. That's why it's buried. That's why we have to go mining for it. It's buried deep beneath the surface where it doesn't really affect the biosphere at this point. And to be perfectly honest, we don't do anything to lithium that makes it like super radioactive or anything like that. If we wanted to put all the lithium back that we brought out, we could just bury it again. Doesn't really work that way with carbon dioxide. You will find that burying a gas is generally problematic.
Yep,
go look up
that.
Go look up fracking.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not talking about Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, we're already having carbon dioxide be buried into ocean water. And look at how well that's working for the Great Barrier Reef, where it's turning the salt ocean water acidic.
And for all those who are scratching their heads, well, how'd all that carbon and such get stuck down in the first place? Well, it took a very long time. All the biological and geological processes that have occurred over the course of hundreds of millions of years, namely, a lot of what we now consider, oil, is the result, not so much, to call it dino juice is somewhat inaccurate. In fact, the most prominent life form on the planet at the time was algae. And as tectonic plates have moved, the algae gets brought up onto the onto dry land where it dries out and forms a nice little slurry that, again, dries out, hardens, and then gets buried underneath even more geological processes until it's buried deep enough where the heat and the pressure is able to consolidate it into those very long hydrocarbon chains that make up oil and coal.
So what can we actually do ourselves? Stop relying on the stuff that's killing us, for one thing, would be a really good step individually. Now, again, there are certain things that we don't have too much of a choice current technology-wise. I mean, truth be told, would water be considered a good power source for transportation? A lot of people would say no, because you can't separate those gases easily with what you're doing in a car. Well, that's all well and good, but the guys over there at NASA use water and hydrogen and oxygen for rockets, for getting up out of the atmosphere, shit like that.
Now, to be fair, we're not telling anybody to strap a rocket to their car.
I'm absolutely telling you to strap a rocket to your car. Go ahead and try that. See how that works out for you. And afterwards, please send us the GoPro video. It's 1300 Elmwood Avenue, Buffalo, New York, 142. Joe, you can get rid of that. You can get rid of that graphic.
We've learned more than enough about rocket-powered cars from Mr. Savage and Mr. Heineman.
Yes, not the least of which is one cannot trust them. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you want to look at it from a slightly different perspective, water is how we've done a lot of our travel and trade for the majority of our existence.
It's true. It's true. Now, here's a piece that Bridget, I'm going to put you on the spot for.
Uh-oh.
There is a piece of there's a piece of the scientific principle, the dare I say theorem on life that is really super important for the Darwinian explanation for the diversity of species on this planet. You need to have some reason why a life form cannot survive well enough in a particular area for whatever reason. What one basic element is necessary to get from one species that is not as good surviving in an area to getting to another species that will be much better at surviving in an area? And I give you a hint.
Adaptation? I see you tapping at your hand.
My wrist. I don't have anything on my wrist, but there should be something on my wrist because
time.
Yeah, there you go.
Time.
And a lot of
I know.
And yeah, it does take a lot of time for stuff to evolve from one species to another, unless you happen to be like, a little microorganism.
Orders of, millions of years.
Yeah.
Or thousands. which
for minor adaptations.
For some can be urged along a little bit quicker.
Well,
but
it depends on reproduction cycles and stuff like that. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And Stephanie is also putting a couple of other items over here, which let me get your pieces over here in a couple of moments, because I think you got a couple of other that you're going to drop in here. But before we go ahead and wrap this up, one of the things that we keep hearing about, and people are not going to think that I'm on the same track on this one, but go with me on this one a second. One of the things that we keep hearing from people who are very much against the teaching of evolution is they keep yelling and screaming about, oh, well, all you need is time in order to make things happen. Time is a huge component to the way that things change, how evolution works. You, of course, would know better than any of us what happens when you're dealing with strains of bacteria.
Well, they mutate and adapt to outside pressures, whether it's antibiotics or some kind of selective resistance develops if something's trying to kill them, and they do it rather quickly because they reproduce so quickly.
Yep, and isn't there a what is it called at this point? A resistant staph?
Oh yeah,
MSRA or MRSA.
Well, there's stuff worse than MRSA now. There are literally some superbugs out there that are impervious to all known antibiotics. I mean, there is no treatment for them. And we're starting to see this in simple things like sinus infections and ear infections, to where there just is no antibiotic that will work.
Yeah, there's a video I'm gonna link into the show, and I'm gonna drop this over in here. This was the E. coli resistance video, and for those of you that don't know about this one, the video shows that what they did was they made a big what the hell is that stuff called? Agar?
Agar.
Agar. Okay, they made basically a table of agar, and they sectioned it off, and they had put E. coli on the outside edges, and then a band of what would normally be the single dose amount of antibiotics to kill it, and then 5, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. And over the course of 14 days, it evolved in order to completely overrun the table through 1,000 times the strength of what would otherwise be needed to kill it off. Bridget, if you were to give someone 1,000 times the recommended dose of something to kill an infection, generally speaking, what would it do to most humans?
It would kill the organism you're trying to save, the human.
Yeah, that's a bad day right there, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Now, Stephanie brings up a point that I'd like to elaborate on, if I may.
Let me guess. It's from the last 3 that you put in there.
Yes.
All right. So let me go ahead and read them off, and then you go ahead and delve into it. The 3 things that she put over in here was: 1, insulate your homes heavily. That keeps your home cool in hot weather and warm in the cold. Check out Scandinavian houses. 2, you really need to check out the latest electric cars. Suzuki Samurai is water powered. This is something I was unaware of, but I'll be more than happy to check that out. And item number 3, only buy stuff you need, not what you want. All yours, Joe.
And that last one is the one that I'd like to elaborate on. Which, for me, I know that it seems terribly hypocritical of me, being the typical American living in an apartment with a computer and internet and all that stuff. but I'm going to say it anyway. We're entitled. We as a species, we're entitled. We're the humans. We're the masters of our environment. You know, the world bows to us. You've got your, I mean, even back in the day, we chopped down all that wood. We burnt up all that coal to make our lives more convenient. Now, could we go to, you know, wind and solar power and all that other stuff? Yeah, no problem. But it's inconvenient. That's the big thing. We like having our plastics that, you know, make up our tablets and the coal burning plants that provide the power to keep them running. We like having cars that can go, you know, 0 to 60 in 7 seconds flat rather than a horse and buggy. We like having, now this one's probably going to strike home for a lot of folks, but going to do it anyway. We like having lots of kids because if we're in an agricultural society, that's more hands to work the field. Or if we're in a hierarchical society, that's more boys and girls to carry on the family name. If we're going to continue the way we're going right now, I've got something very controversial that you know could save our butts. But if we're going to continue at the rate we're going now, forgive the term, PG ratings going out the window, we need to stop fucking. Because there's too many of us for all of us to live the way we're living. If we want there to be more of us, or even, I would argue, where we're at right now, as far as population's concerned, we need to put aside our little idea of being entitled to all these things and accept the more inconvenient lifestyle, because otherwise we're screwed.
That's actually nicer than what I thought you were gonna go with. I thought you were gonna say maybe war isn't such a bad idea. Get rid of a bunch of us.
That's what I was gonna say, is we need a drastic drop in population. Now, how do we achieve this? Well,
we could start with Congress.
We could. Hey, I've already illustrated my idea for Congress. Lock them all in there, drop a broken pool cue from the roof, and, you know, put it all on CCTV so that we can televise it pay-per-view. I guarantee you we'd earn NASA enough funding to, you know, go to Pluto again with people. Man. But in any case, I'm not going to advocate genocide. I'm not going to advocate war. I'm not going to advocate any kind of, you know, epidemic disease of any sort or starvation of any sort. But here's the thing. If we don't change something, that's what's going to happen. There will become a point where even if the resources are available, there's not even enough space to produce enough food to feed everyone. Which, what happens then? Well, starvation sets in, and then disease starts setting in. And, you know, both of those generally end up, from a historical perspective, end up causing wars, which, you know, again,
does cause that a little bit of a problem. Yeah, considering that we're getting pretty close on to wrapping at this point.
Sorry.
No, that's actually works out perfect. Bridget, what thing do you want to drop in there at this point? I mean,
Can't really think of anything other than I think we're pretty well screwed. And that sounds really pessimistic, but yeah. I just don't see the public will to do anything to improve our situation or to address anything. I mean, hell, they're wanting to cut money to, fund NOAA and National Weather Service and things like that, which is really stupid. But
I hate to be the little rain cloud over the parade, but
yeah,
the outlook isn't that good.
It's not. I mean, people or at least the politicians in the government, they're like, well, we know that there's, environmental problems, but it's just too expensive and it'll hurt the economy to fix them, so we can't do anything because money, the economy. I think it's horribly misguided.
And before I go ahead and finish off my piece, Aubrey has put a piece over here, which is true. War is going to be inevitable. Wars over natural resources. We're going to have wars over water in the Middle East and Africa pretty soon. And Stephanie has also put just after that, as soon as I started talking, educate women, give them autonomy, and they have less children. No, they have fewer children. Yes, I'm being a dick about it. Shut up. But no, you're absolutely right. If we have more education, if we have more personal autonomy, if we have, well, less willful ignorance pushing things around. And that's kind of where I'm finishing this off. What can we do individually ourselves? We can do our little parts. Now, yeah, we're not going to do anything to really affect the planet on a global scale. That's just simply not going to have happen. But like I said, little pieces build up, no matter whether they're for good or for ill. They build up. They're cumulative. Sometimes it can spark a social thing. I mean, all it takes is for one person at the right point to be the flashpoint for a new social structure, and things start going good or bad, depending as to who it is and what's going on. I'm sure you can pretty well guess at least two people that I'm thinking of right now, one of which is not so good, one of which is actually pretty good. I will go as far as to say that I hope after I go to sleep tonight, I have another dream as well. See what I did there. We have the ability. We have it available. Here in Buffalo, one of the campuses is getting its electrical energy from a bunch of solar panels, a quarter-mile long, and it feeds the campus. Yeah, a quarter mile in length. I forget how far deep it is, but it's possible to do. Now, you've got all the dystopian science fiction from anime where solar panels are up on top of buildings and it feeds into the building and it offsets the amount of power that's necessary for that building. What's wrong with this? Really? I mean, what's wrong with this? Oh, you got to use a fossil fuel vehicle to bring it over, and a fossil fuel crane to install it, and fossil fuel in order to manufacture the pieces. Yeah, fine, okay, good, great. Then what? Then it sits. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, not necessarily. Because let's see, Great Wall of China, the pyramids, all these great works that, humanity has created, these wonders. We didn't need fossil fuels to build them. Fossil fuels just make it more convenient.
And once they're in place, what do they have to do? They sit there. They sit there and they do their job. And that's what's important. If it's solar power, it sits there and it pulls in the photons. If it's wind energy, it sits up there and it spins and it collects that energy. If it's hydroelectric, it spins and it collects that energy. If it's radioactive, it creates heat and steam and turns the turbine that collects the energy. Ultimately, what's far and away more important is to generate the energy that we need to store it, to be able to utilize it without slitting our own throats. It's doable. It's far and away easily doable. But like Joe said, it's inconvenient. The most important part about it to me is that we have to recognize time. This is not something that's a quick fix. It's a long, slow curve. Are we going to be able to do anything about this? Eventually. Question is anybody going to be around later to say, told you so? As always, everyone, thank you very much for being part of our show and listening to all of the things that we've got to say, as few voices as we've had tonight. We hope that you found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives and have something to think about at least a little bit more tonight. So on behalf of the folks that could not be here tonight, we'll be looking forward to having you guys joining us next week. Dalan, Joseph, Heretic Woman, and Unreno Tech, you guys take care of yourselves. We'll be looking forward to seeing you guys next week or shortly thereafter. Joey, thank you for your time and staying conscious for tonight. I'm actually proud for you, and I hope you have yourself some good rest tonight. A little bit of coffee. Who'd you get the coffee from this time?
One of the stores around here.
You know what? If you can't even tell me who it is, you didn't have nearly enough early enough.
Well, I also don't want to endorse anyone.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
The only thing I have to say as far as closing all this up goes is, look, life on this planet will continue. Whether or not we're going to be a part of it is completely up to us.
Not the case. Bridget, thank you very much for your time. You have yourself a good sleep and plug away all of your stuff for yourself.
Well, you can come see me at my blog at bridgetfitch2112.wordpress.com, or you can find me on Facebook as Bridget Fitch.
For the other guys, of course, thank you. If you'd like to check out Dalan's stuff, he's, of course, working on the audio portion of the podcast. So if you'd like to subscribe to just the audio section, swing over to holycrapthevlogcast.com. The subscription is over on the left side of the screen for yourself. You can see it right there and catch up on the old episodes if you'd like. I still have a lot of work to do myself over there. But if you'd like to check out his blog, it's at inthewind.yo5.ca. Check that out. You can also check out on Monday nights, over also on YouTube, Heretic Woman, along with her cohorts in crime, Beyond the Trailer Park. You can check out all the information for them at beyondthetrailerpark.com. And safe trip out there for you guys. Take good care. If you'd like to send us a voicemail message, please feel free at any time. You can do that over at 859-HCTV-554, 859-428-8554. We've also got all of the social links available over there. Plus, don't forget, we do have Patreon and PayPal available if you'd like to donate to us. And I'm going to be starting next week in thanking people who have contributed already. Yes, we're going to have a real thing starting next week to thank the folks that have been helping us out, because we do have someone that's already helping out a little bit on that. Over at Patreon, it's patreon.com/holycraptv, because somebody already had HCTV. God damn it. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. But if you want to do it over on PayPal, it's Patreon at holycrapthevlogcast.com. I know. I set it up that way intentionally because it's all supposed to be for our patrons. See what I did? Whatever. Anyway. And we will be looking forward to seeing you guys next week, of course. Last piece of information before I get us out of here really quickly. This Thursday coming up is the 7th of September. That is the day that my wife and I first saw each other and first met in 1988. And for the last 12 years, I have gone back to the campus, back at State University of New York at Fredonia. Yes, I know. Hail, hail, Fredonia. Thank you, Groucho. And I go back every year. I leave a dozen roses in the band room where we first saw each other. I pick up a case of wine at the vineyard not too far away at Woodbury. And I pick up 7 stars around the moon at the Chinese restaurant just off of campus. I will be going back again, as I have, because, like I keep telling you guys, I am still in love. And it's good to know that some things don't change. What can I say? I'm a romantic. So as always, everybody, until the next time we get together, I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And for my lady, like I said, I am still in love. Not today, Fujin. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we get together, everyone, as always, good night.